Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the New England Racing Show, Manchester, New Hampshire, Channel 23. We're also on YouTube, and like us on Facebook, you'll get the show automatically on your Facebook page every week. Well, this week we have part 2 of Irish Saunders' presentation. Irish is the Hoosier guy, and he gives a lot of tips on tires and how to use them and compounds and everything. Last week was part 1. We got part 2, and we'll have a short part 3 next week. It was a pretty involved presentation. So we'll go to that now.
And the other thing that you'll find by going to a harder tire, it promotes soaking. I can just tell you that right now. Everybody will start soaking. And I don't know if it's going on now. I don't know if people are doing it up here. But I can tell you that it's going on just about everywhere in the country. But, and I was telling, I don't know if I told you, Mike, about it, there is a place that you can get it tested. Lucas Oil late models do it. World of Outlaws do it. USAC does it. There's a lot of different series. There's a place that they send the tires to. They have them analytically tested. NASCAR does it. Actually, we gave NASCAR the name, and they busted a guy last fall on the modified tour for soaking. And but when you go to those harder tires, that's things that you have to be aware of, you know. And I mean, I've seen tires that have been chemically altered. For example, Richmond, Virginia, for a Silver Crown race, I get a call from Mike Devitt from USAC. Mike says, "I think we got a tire problem here with the right front tire." Well, what do you got? He said it came off Chet Phillips' car. I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, the tread came off." Send the tire back. I said, "You got it?" He goes, "I got it." Send the tire back. He sends the tread back in a plastic bag. We have it down at the plant. We opened the plastic bag, and it just about knocked you over. So my next phone call was to Chet Phillip and Corey Phillip. I said, "Hey, did you guys soak this thing?" "Nope." He said, "We never soaked it. We went to the tire truck, and we bought it right off the tire truck." Well, come to find out, they looked back, and that tire came back from another competitor. So I'm a big proponent that once that tire leaves impound and I can't see it anymore, I don't know what happens, because you know what? I don't want to sell you a tire, or you something that I don't know what's been done to it. And there's guys out there that I know are doing it. But the best way to do it is that we can do that testing. If NEMA decides that they want to do that, we can get that information to the lab, and it's not that much money to do it. I think it's, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like $100 a tire is what it costs to have it tested. And they will send you back the results of what's been found in that tire. And they're good. I mean, it stinks for the quarter midget kids, but there's been quarter midget kids that's been DQ'd with USAC because they've got caught. What are you laughing about?
We don't have a rule against it anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
We're legal to do it.
We're going to see what the
We see a lot of tires wrecked because they want to keep the mud off of them.
Yeah, I know. That's what somebody was telling me.
To keep the compound on
somebody was
it.
telling me something. Said, "Boy, the guys just really like to keep their tires clean. They just wrap them in cellophane when they bring them to the racetrack."
Oh, yeah.
The stones.
Yeah.
Can I go back to the buff? When you say buff the tire and swap it over, I understand how to swap it around, but what exactly is the buff process? Is that the coarse wheel that I see?
Well, it's not so much a coarse wheel. It's if you use a body grinder with like a wire wheel, a cup wire wheel on it. Use a right angle body grinder, it works. Because here's what's happened.
So all you're doing is you're just kind of opening up the pores again?
Yep, taking the glaze off of it. Because here's what's happened. Asphalt back in, and I don't even know of a racetrack that just grinds tires down. It used to be, I mean, Stafford used to be pretty bad, I think, before they paved. He used to grind tires quite good. Leo grind tires too. But what was happening is, it's no different than indoor racing. I mean, the first thing you go in and you watch an indoor race, what happens? They buff the tires. Why? Because there's no abrasion there. There's nothing to keep the tire clean and keep that fresh rubber laying down all the time. So by taking the tire home, knocking that glaze off of it, it helps make the tire come back and repeat. So because there's not, the asphalt anymore doesn't have enough abrasion to it to tear the tire and keep the thing clean. A lot of times too, I've even seen it that, and more on a late model than anything, that they'll have a tire that will seal up on a caution. The tire will be good. Next thing you know, the guy, they go out in the speedy dry, they go to take off again, and the track's got a real fine, I mean, it's just, some of these asphalt jobs that they're doing now, it's almost like it's concrete. I mean, it's so fine, there's no abrasion to it at all. So when they run through all the speedy dry, they pick up on the tire, they go grade again, and the tires just don't take off. They won't clean themselves. So that's something that to do is to keep those tires clean. That's really important. And I've actually had a lot of guys do it in between races. They'll buff the tires down in between races. Just so they got that pressure up.
Heat gun between races generally.
A heat gun?
Yeah, heat gun and a scraper. We get a lot of buildup on the lights cars. We're getting a lot of buildup. We're picking up a lot of the other rubber off the track.
Yep.
We come in with a good layer of other rubber on there and scrape them off. They look like brand new again after we scrape them.
Yep. And that does work, but I think what you'll find is if you try using a grinder and grinding it, it'll even be better yet. Because it's still, even though you're scraping it, it still can't get down into the rubber and bring the fresh rubber up. It still has this tendency of making it so it's still sealed up. Yeah.
Last year, we had a problem with it. I think they changed the depth of the tire last year. The tires were thinner. And I think our NEMA tires, and that was probably one of the biggest issues that we had was you'd run a tire for a night and it would be so thin, you'd be almost down to the wear holes. So we couldn't, in the past, we used to do things like buff them and clean them and take the feature tires the week before and come back and run them and qualify the next week. And just seen that the tires were too thin to do that last year.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, part of that reason that I know that they did that is to try to get rid of that heat, just like you were saying, they're blistering tires, okay? So maybe it's a case that we do need to be on maybe a little bit cooler compound, but always remember for every 32nd of rubber that you lose, you're gonna cool the tire by 20 degrees. So how many of you have said, well, I went out back and I found this old tire and I put this old tire on that was halfway wore out and boy, it didn't blister and it would look good? Well, because you've gotten rid of some of that rubber on the tire. And there again, it's really tough because you have some guys that are going to blister a tire. You got other tires that they come in and look brand new, So it's like, and like I say, you can do both. I mean, now, we offer the 7.3 or the 7. You can take your pick. The 7.3 is going to be just a little bit tougher is what it's going to be. Shouldn't be much difference in speed. But that's a case where, like I say, there's just so many differences in the cars that it's like, okay, do we need to go ahead and cool the tire down? Do we need to make it a little bit tougher? That's fine, but everybody's got to get on the same page to make this work. Because, like I say, I mean, you get everybody has their own agenda. It's like, well, I don't want to do that because I can make a soft tire work, and you're saying, well, no, I need a harder tire because I wear one out, and Mike's saying, I don't really care. Just give me something just so I can go race on. That's it. So, I mean, we can build whatever needs to be built, for the club to make it so it's good for everybody up here. But we just got to have some direction where to go, and we got to have everybody get on the same page on what to do.
Irish,
Yeah.
you're talking about scuffing the tires there after it's gone through, like Mike was saying, maybe 2 or 3 heat cycles.
Mhm.
At what percentage of performance you would think you would be at after a scuffed tire after you've run it like through 3 cycles? How far back could you?
It just, I've seen, like,
Would it be anywhere, say like 80% as good as not a brand new tire, but say through a second heat cycle or something like that?
I've seen things that we've done a lot of testing where we come back and run them the next week. We do heat cycles on different things, that type of rubber that's on the midget tires, and we'll see that the fall off isn't going to be. Of course, what we're doing too is we're flipping them on the wheels. We do that, and we come back the next time too. That you might see maybe a drop off of maybe 4/10 after probably 80 laps on the tires. It's like 4/10.
How many laps?
80.
80 laps.
80 laps. But the real key is flipping them tires. I'm telling you. That's a real important thing to do that I know, and I wondered if a lot of guys were doing that up here.
So what Tim says is, as long as you have a depth wear hole, you can still use that tire.
You can still use it,
and it shouldn't be any less a tire.
It shouldn't. It'll act a little bit harder as you start wearing it down. But still, when you flip that thing around here, because remember, the most abrasive part of that, or the most part you're going to use out of the tire is the back half of it, and you can get that good rubber still left out there. I mean, you look at the tires and now look at this right rear. There's not very many pins on the back shoulder. We're not going to run it. But you look at the outside shoulder, it's like, man, we still got 4/32 out there. Flip that tire around and run it again.
Especially on the right fronts, you get that. Especially on the right front.
When camber.
Because you'll see it, yep.
Yep, when you can camber it. Just flip that right front. It's not going to hurt it at all. Flip it and buff it. It's not going to hurt it. If you come away from anything out of this deal, flip it and buff. Flip and buff. Because it's all about, I don't know about you guys, but my wife always tells me, she said, you got more time than you got money, so you need to do whatever you got to do to make this stuff work. Any other questions you got here?
And I've done
Yes.
that, I used to do that all the time.
We have a rule where we have to run a clearly used tire in the feature. Can't run a sticker. What's your opinion of that?
What's the definition of a used tire?
No, we gotta have a scuff tire, none, can't be a
Can't have a
sticker.
sticker on it.
It's gotta be scuffed, and it's gotta be, the rule says that.
So if I go out and make,
Anybody that-
2 laps, it's
Yeah,
scuffed.
it's
Yeah, I
scuff.
mean, anybody, it's gotta, the rule reads that it's a kind of a good faith thing. We all know what a scuffed tire looks like. We all know what one looks like, that you took a heat gun and scraper to it, scrape the surface off,
Yeah.
sticker off, right? So
Yeah.
our rule says, it's gotta commonly, to any racer in the club look like a tire that's been properly scuffed on the racetrack.
Well, obviously, the least amount of laps you scuff it, the better off you're gonna be. That's, and something else I brought up, and I'm just gonna throw this out, and you can use it, and I know ISMA uses this, and it does work. They stamp all 4 tires, and the tires you run in a heat race, you gotta run those same tires in the feature.
We would never rate rear halfway through.
We would
the
never be
feature.
able to do that with the current tires that we have.
Somebody will make it work. You know what? That's exactly what you said is exactly what ISMA said when they first did it. Exactly. I said right there. I said, we won't have any right rear left. We're done. Well, guess what? It works. And they're actually on softer tires now than what they were when they said it wouldn't work.
A lot of the ISMA drivers do flip their tires.
They flip their tires. They'll flip their tires. And they take care of them in the heat race. But just right then, that's just gonna save you guys money by doing that.
We have a 3-tire rule anyway, though, so you can only run 3 tires a night regardless of what you're doing. So most guys are running in a heat race something that they ran in some previous feature. So that's the way we do it. That's the way we kind of get around that scenario.
Yeah, Bob.
And I think the other thing about that, what we're doing, we're putting on, I think, better races in the heat race than the ISMA guys are, because they have the feature tires on, and they'll get to 6th spot and just stay there, and their heat races are.
And they do, and you're right, they do that, and the bottom line is.
You don't blame them. The
No.
heat race pays nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're saving
That's
their
why
tires.
we didn't go to it. We talked about it, but.
Yeah.
They're saving their tires.
I think the main thing though is flipping the tires is gonna help a lot. It's gonna help a lot.
I learned, I was talking to Irish and Thompson, and we were talking about making the tire thinner, make it cool it down. It did probably keep the tire cooler. We put a Band-Aid on it as far as I'm concerned. Some of these cars, we got different cars in the club here, they probably run a 5 up front and get away with it and not hurt the right rear. We got some other cars like the Beast that run that 5 up front, and what does it do? First tire into the corner is the right front. And what does it do? It grabs. And what does the back side do? Work harder than you're supposed to be working. And when we got a thin wall tire, it's going to wear out faster. We try to keep it cool. And Kirk, we have them wrong.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're
And
right.
it's
It's gotta follow the front.
going to follow it. But the whole thing is, and we got the riding cars will probably likes the 5s, and the Beast cars like the 6s. I mean, we have tires out there, available to us. If it's a 6, I think we should do is say, you can pick and choose. If you want to run a 5, you can run a 6. I think, I think we should try to, that would help your tire wear in your right rear corner.
It definitely helps. I mean, if you lock that front down so much, and the right front's turning, the right rear's gonna follow it. And I mean, the car's turning really good, it's definitely gonna help, it's gonna hurt the right rear, there's no doubt about it. I think that puts more balance into it, because back in the day, we used to run 7s on the right front, And then all of a sudden, we started running 5s, or 6s. And all of a sudden, now we're running 5s, and if we keep going, guys will be saying, hey, I wanna run a 4 on the right front, because the cars are getting better. I can run a 4 on the right front. So I think what Mike's saying is something that maybe to look at, Again, I want you to know that Hoosier, because I'm passionate about racing, midget racing is a very small part of our business, but I love it, okay? And Hoosier's always going to be involved in midget racing. No matter, as long as I'm alive, we're going to be involved in midget racing. I don't care what it takes, we're going to be involved in it. But something that we can do, if the club decides, and says, hey, you know what? We need to do some testing. Well, we're gonna do the right type of testing. We're gonna be able to do our engineers, our contractors, we're gonna figure out what is it that we really need. Are you willing to give up a little bit of speed to get more longevity? Are you willing to give up a little bit of grip to get more longevity? Because I have not, I mean, we got very, very, very good compounders, but they sure have not been able to come up with keeping the grip that you have now and giving you a lot better wear. There's a trade-off that you have to have. So giving up a little bit of grip, is that gonna hurt your racing? You guys gotta tell me, you know? Yes?
For what I see on it, is there's a big change in the speed of the tire from when first 2 heat cycles to that 3rd and 4th heat cycle, you try and get more time out of it. To me, if the tire would be more consistent from the first heat cycle to that last time you ran it, that would be a benefit to everybody, because now you can put on that tire that you ran last week, you still got tread left, you're not gonna be that much slower. So to me, it's consistency more than, if it was a little bit harder to start with, but it didn't fall off as much, that might be a better tire from my standpoint.
Mm-hmm. And that's stuff we can do. I mean, there's compounds that we have that we can go to, but I just need to hear it from everybody here that this is what you want to do. This is the direction you want to go. Don't think that Hoosier's just saying, hey, you know what, this is all you got, this is it. I mean, that's not it at all. We're willing to do what needs to happen to help midget racing. Because as we all know, we love midget racing, but it needs help. And I'm not bashing it, but I look at USAC and what happened there. And I've always said you guys are very strong with what you do up here. You have a good group of people up here. When USAC was really, when they started on their downside, you guys were still strong up here. And you, Mike, you said all that happened is USAC just came east. You know, the specialized car. How many run a combo car on asphalt anymore? Nobody, right?
You do.
You do?
A lot of the lights are.
But I mean the full-blown midgets. I mean it's specialized cars. You know. And guys, I wish I could wave a magic wand and say this is how it's going to fix it. But I don't know. And boy, believe me, you've got a lot of knowledge up here with midget racing. Yes, Steve.
Just a question on the production side. If the club did decide to change the compound a little bit, how much of a window do you need so that we don't create a problem where we're out of tires and go into a fast track?
That's a good question, Steve, and I'm glad you brought that up, because like right now we've built a lot of winter production for NEMA. There's MG7s sitting in the warehouse right now, a lot of them for NEMA. So let's say that, for example, let's say for 2015, we want to do some testing throughout the summer. For 2015, okay, this is what we're going to do. We go ahead and gear up for what we need. We look at what we sold in 2014, say, okay, well, we're going to be able to have a little bit better longevity on the tires. Probably won't go through as many. I mean, let's face it, the guys that still can buy tires are still going to buy tires. They're still going to do it. I don't care if it's a hard tire, if it's soft, they're still going to buy tires.
Well,
but
if we're all soaking, does it really matter what we're running anyway?
you know what? That throws it all out the window. To be honest with you, you know. I mean, nobody's going to admit that I'm soaking. Well, maybe some people. I don't know if they do or not. But you know what? Maybe this guy that blistered his tire or wore this tire out, we don't know. Is he soaking it? We don't know. I mean,
soaking it could cause that, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I have no key behind the wheel.
I'm sorry to hear that. But remember one thing: whose phone does he answer? Remember one thing: whose phone does he answer? Right?
Yeah.
It's not Scrivani's.
Yeah.
But Steve, you have a good point. But that's something that, you know. And the other thing too is that I can sit here and tell you, and I don't know if anybody's told you or not, but we are not raising prices this year on tires. We were able to buy quantity of material, raw material, knowing going forward that we can do this, and that's why we can keep the cost down. I'm trying to think. I think it's Pro Shocks. I just heard this from Pro Shocks. Heard they're having a 15% increase in Pro Shocks. Is what I heard. I don't know if you heard that yet or not. So you know, but this is important. Mrs. Newton, she's still involved in racing, even though Bob's gone. We're all like her kids, so she'll listen to what we say, and it's all about trying to keep costs down. When we went to her and said, Joyce, you know, we bought far enough ahead with all this, you know, raw material. We got really good prices, And she's a person that she pays her bills right away, and that was part of the reason why we got it, is she paid for this stuff all up front. And we were able to keep the cost down, so that's why we were able to do it. But to answer your question, let's say that, okay, well, we want to have a different compound, we want to have something a little bit tougher, maybe, whatever you want to do, you want to have a narrow tire, a little tougher, whatever it might be, we could do it. But we just have to have a little lead time and actually do proper testing through it, is what we got to do. But we can build those in the winter time, build our winter production. Because like I say, we used to be able to, turn that ship around real fast, but the growth of Hoosier is like we have to build tires in the winter so we don't run out of tires in the summer. And it's very important that Bobby's done a very good job with Hoosier East as trying to forecast tires and say, okay, well, here's a schedule with NEMA. This is what I think we need for tires here, here. This month we need this, and we build them on a forecast is what we do. Which brings up, yes?
Kind of off, like the subject you're talking about now, but the rim widths, have you guys done any testing with I know we have a couple of NEMA cars and a lot of the light cars, we do a 12-inch wide rim to a 10-inch wide rim. Have you guys done testing with with that whole ordeal?
That tire definitely likes a 12-inch rim.
Is that a big, would you say, big increase in advantage?
I don't think it's going to be a big increase. You'll see an increase. I don't know, maybe 10% maybe, Bobby, when you did that more up here years ago, right? When you were running, well, what did you see when you guys did that?
Definitely better tire wear. That's something we thought of with the light cars, was trying to, first of all, we used it as a tuning tool for, when the purpose-built Beast cars came into the light series, what do you do with the combo car? And that's why we decided we would go with a 12-inch tire for the combo car, and we have the 10-inch. And we have probably 75 feature wins throughout the course of the light 5-6 years. Half of them been with combo cars and half of them been with purpose-built cars. So it's kind of a tuning tool that I think we've used. I think we've done a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, I know that when we tested, though, to answer your question, the 12-inch tire, that tire really liked it. And the engineers really like to have that tire on a 12-inch wide wheel versus the 10, but it still works on a 10, Yes?
What if, would a, instead of running a 12-inch on the right rear and a 10-inch wheel, would it work better to have a 10-inch tire on a 10-inch wheel? Or would that hurt trying to have?
It's funny you say that, because just like the Focus tire that they run on a Focus tire, that is a 10-inch tire on a 10-inch wheel, and it seems to work fairly well there also. The West Coast, which they're again pavement racing out there with BCR, it's struggling also. They decided to kind of open their tire roll up, and they went to a 10-inch tire. Actually, it was a tire that Don Kenyon had for I guess it was his K cars he ran them, with his series that he had. It was a 760 tire, which is going to be the next step up for hardness of what it is for a 7.3, and it's on a 10-inch tire, and he runs those on 10-inch wheels, and that's what they went to out there on the West Coast.
With no wings on.
And no wings though, yes.
Right.
Yeah, no wings though.
No wing.
So, and they have performed well out there. They are slower. They're probably 3/10 slower, maybe 4/10 slower than what the wide tire is, like a 7.
Is that versus a 12-inch on a 10-inch wheel, or is that versus a 12 on a 12-inch?
That's a 10-inch wheel, a 12-inch wide tire on a 10-inch wheel
Okay,
versus.
so it is about 3/10 slower.
Yeah. Yep, it's about 3/10 slower.
Plus
It's
shorter.
Plus it's shorter too.
Shorter, so you have trouble getting your stagger.
Well, we got a left rear that goes with it, a 22.0 that goes with it, but it's just going to lower the whole car is what it's going to do. And, when we first came up with that, Don Kenyon was like, I said, Don, he said, don't worry about it. Don Kenyon's pretty easy going about things, and he said, don't worry about it, we'll make it work, and they did, So that's an option too, Does that help take the motor equation out of it? I don't know. I know the World of Outlaws, for sprint cars, they went to narrow tires just to try to slow the cars down some, and not make it so that they're going to use all that horsepower they got. And they don't like it. The drivers don't like it at all. They don't like it. Yeah.
Question I have too, the construction of the 7.3 and the 7, is that the same?
Identical.
Just only
Only the compound rubber is all the differences.
The 7.3 appeared to be thicker though, the depth of the 7.3.
The 7.3 does have a little bit more rubber on it.
Yeah.
And it's back to what we talked about trying to get that 7, keep that grip, and have, and try to get rid of some heat. That's why we did that.
And we successfully ran the 7.3 a bunch of times last year, so I think it's
I don't think, you know what, I don't think it's that far off between the two, personally myself.
I think the 7.3 had less fall off through the heat cycles too. I think that was more consistent through the.
Part of that might have been the tread rubber too, because as you start wearing them things down, I mean, it's gonna fall off some, obviously. I think it's part of that is that too. But I mean, that 7.3 compound's been around a long time. More questions? You guys are pretty easy.
How much of a difference? I mean, the 7.3, making the 7.3 and making the 7. What is there? I mean, we're really looking for the best of both worlds. Is to say in between the 7.3 and the 7. I mean,
there's nothing in between the two.
So if we wanted to try and test some tires
that were harder,
yes,
we got compound we could do that. Yeah, it'd be a little bit harder than 7.3 and a little less grip. That's what we have too.
Because with the wing and everybody runs all kinds of freaky combinations, sometimes the right side is too soft and really beats that right tire down, and the down pressure on that wing. And
yeah, it's hard.
And especially for you guys, not too many wing clubs out there left.
No, there isn't.
And
it's hard to, again, make everybody happy.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard because there's so many different combinations of cars and different combinations of setups and stuff up here. Trying to have one thing that's going to make everybody happy, it's hard to do.
It's hard to get, to share things in the club because everybody runs all combinations on it. Nobody's the same.
I've always found with clubs is that if there's 100 members, there's 100 different ideas.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of things. Like I said, the main thing to do is buff tires, keep them clean, keep them out of the sunlight. You don't want to keep them in the sunlight. The ozone will cause cracking, so you want to keep them out of the sunlight. That's very important. Air pressure, using that tire as a spring. That's very, very important to use it as a spring. Remember, 1 pound is 15 pounds of spring rate. Yeah.
About, you see a lot of races, they, wrap them and shrink wrap after a certain period of time. What's going on?
After they soak them?
I don't know. I understand what they're soaking. I just see them where they get the shrink wrap, and probably as part 2 of this question, if you were a car owner and you say, I really want to get 5 heat cycles, that seems to be, I don't know, most of us, we talk about that. 5 heat cycles out of a right rear tire that were, fairly acceptable and competitive compared to see them getting like 3.5.
Well, first of all, I'd be flipping my tires. Number 1. Again, I got more time than I got money. My wife will tell you that. So I would be flipping my tires to keep that consistency in there to where I've got the same amount of rubber when I go back. So it starts wearing down some. Flip that thing on there. That's important. A lot of guys I know, they do wrap to preserve the tire. They say I've never done that. To be honest with you, with stock cars, with everything else that we do, we never wrapped them. We might put them in a plastic bag for putting them in the winter. Putting them out down in the basement or something in the winter. And you actually never want to really leave the tires in below freezing because some of the resins that are in the compounds have a tendency to maybe crack.
Right.
If you are going to store them in a place that's going to be below freezing, don't move them around until after they have a tendency to warm up, because they do have a tendency to crack. But I think if you're going, you're wrapping the tires and stuff, there's only one reason that I think that you wrap tires, and that's just you're doing something to them.
Well, hope you like that. I just want to remind everyone this Sunday, Mother's Day, is the big open modified race, the Tri-Track Modified Series, Round 1 at Lee Speedway. And we expect to see, 40, 50 modifieds show up. And you don't see that at any of the tours. It's just each tour has its own group. But this is open, so you're going to have everyone together. I expect a huge field, and I hope we have a great crowd. Also, the small block supers will be racing, the classic lights, and I'm not sure what else, but it's going to be a full day of racing. So we hope to see you all there, and we'll see you next week.